here to talk to you today about comparison and contrast writing for the Rhetorical Mode series. Comparison and contrast writing is something that you're going to use often in your college career, and it's really something that you do every day, even though you may not think about it. For example, you might think about which gaming system you want to buy. Do you want a Nintendo Switch or do you want an Xbox? You might think about how you're going to use the gaming system, what types of games you're going to play, compare prices, and then make a decision on which gaming system you would buy. Comparison contrasting writing is using a similar concept, and it really could be used in almost any subject area. For example, in your English class or in your humanities class, you could compare and contrast two classic films, and that's what I'm going to use for my example. I'm going to use two classics, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds and George Cukor's Gaslight.
Are you suggesting that this is a knife I hold in my hand?
So I'm going to think about how those two films are similar and how those two films are different. So both of those films are in the thriller or horror genre. Both of them include great performances by classic actresses of the time, Tippi Hedren for The Birds and Ingrid Bergman for Gaslight. And they also include wonderful settings, lots of detail, and you could look at those two films and kind of go into more detail as you watch them with things that are similar, but they also have differences. For example, The Birds is shot in color, while Gaslight is in black and white, and The Birds contains some visual violence, probably not what we would think of in a more modern film, but those kind of jump scares and things that would make you cringe if you saw them on the screen, while Gaslight is more of a psychological scare or thriller.
Well, I'm afraid I enjoy a good murder now and then. My brother always calls me Bloodthirsty Bessie.
And note that I have mentioned things that are similar and things that are different, because really to successfully compare and contrast something, you have to find things that have a commonality between them.
If she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood.
And therefore...
A witch! A witch!
Even though you're going to be talking about differences as well, there has to be some kind of common ground. You might have heard the saying before that you can't compare apples and swing sets. And it's really true, because there's not enough common with an apple and a swing set that you could do an accurate comparison contrast. You could visually think of it using a Venn diagram. So with one subject on one side, one subject on the other side, and then what those two things have in common in the middle. And there may be times when an instructor wants you to focus on only the similarities or only the differences. You're still using comparison and contrast writing, but it's just that the instructor wants you to focus your writing on one or the other. And there are two ways to structure a compare and contrast essay. The first way is subject by subject. Going back to my film example, subject A, the first movie, is The Birds. And then I might have point 1, point 2, and point 3 about the birds that I want to discuss. And then I might flip to subject B, which is Gaslight, and then point 1, point 2, and point 3 about that film. And so I would cover all of the first one, The Birds, before I switch to the next one, Gaslight. The next type of structure you could use is a point-by-point structure. I could have subject A, The Birds, and then talk about my point, number 1, and then in the same paragraph, flip to subject B, which is Gaslight, and then talk about point number 1. And then I would move to the next paragraph and alternate in that same kind of way. And so that way you're discussing both subjects in the same paragraph and how each point relates. You can use comparison and contrast writing in almost any subject area. In history, you might compare and contrast the effects of a historical event. In science or medicine, compare and contrast treatments for a particular illness. In geography, you could compare and contrast different land masses and the people who inhabit them. So the possibilities are really endless in the different ways you can use comparison and contrast writing. Just make sure you have subjects that have similarities and differences, so you will be able to talk about both, even if your focus is on one or the other. Always, with any type of writing, think about your purpose. Why is it important to compare and contrast these two things? What is it that you're trying to get your reader to see? And then last, decide on a pattern, either subject by subject or point by point. I hope this explains a little bit more about comparison and contrast writing. Happy writing!